Good.
Wait, oh.
Okay, we are going to call the Board of Education meeting for Wednesday, March 15th, 2023 back to order. Everyone, please silence your electronic devices and we will stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance to the flag
The United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The additions and deletions to the agenda since Friday mailing.
Yes, we'll have some correction and additions to 7.8 and 7.9. And I will have additions, 7.14, 15, and 16 will be resignations from coaches, and they will all be reflected in my minutes.
Okay, thank you. Can we have a motion? Mr. Engel, Mrs. Burns, all in favor? We need a motion for the acceptance of the minutes for the March 1st, 2023 BOE meeting. Mr. Dial, Mrs. Burns, all in favor? Aye. And we have our budget presentation for K-12 instructional program and athletics. We will start the timer.
You can start the timer, Teddy, but if each person gets 3 minutes, that'll be 45 hours.
Well,
So we are very pleased, and you'll see kind of a conga line of folks coming up to address the board to talk about one of the greatest investments that we have in the district. And we will most arguably say this is the most important thing that we talk about and that we do here. All the rest of it, operations, transportation, food service, are the things that support this important work, and the number of staff who are dedicated to doing that. So the leaders will come up throughout the presentation and help deliver different components of this. So just a quick reminder of what our district's mission is. Whenever an opportunity to work with new staff during our orientation, the thing that we stress over and over again is it does say all students. And when we do our reporting out on our academic success last year and the year before that, we'll talk about graduation rate, and we are not providing what we need to all of our students. And our eye has to be continuously on that. All of us, I know all on the board are parents. I'm a parent. And the thought that my child is one of those that doesn't make it through is heart-wrenching. So we have work to do. Immersed in all the other things that we're teaching them, math, science, English, social studies, phys ed, health, music, and the like, we try to overtly develop these characteristics in our students as well. And of course, our end goal is for everyone when they leave here to be gainfully employed, enlisted, or enrolled in an institution of their choice, and really be successful at it, because every high school has people who enroll in colleges, but not all of them are successful in the end. So what are we going to do in order to improve the quality of instruction here, K-12, pre-K-12? I love this model because we know that the work that we're doing is multifaceted. It goes well beyond academics. Students who come here need to feel safe and supported, engaged in what the work is that they're doing, and challenged. And one of the things that we've put a hyper focus on in the last 3 or 4 years is multi-tiered systems of support. And on the next slide, we'll talk a little bit about RTI, which was response intervention, and MTSS, this change that's happened in the state, the differences between the two, and again, all students all the time. So as you look on the left side of this model of RTI, you can see that it is very individual, student-oriented, and it was focused on academics. This was prevalent for the majority of my career and for the careers of most of us that are in this room. And there's finally this rotation in thought about it's more than academics, because we could have someone be brilliant in math and go out and not have social skills or not be able to communicate. Or someone could be in some type of social, emotional, or mental crisis and not be able to do what they're able or are capable and need to do. So you can see MTSS on the right side is much more of a wraparound of the whole child. And in essence, everything that we do fits into this model. When we do our academic presentations a little bit later in the spring, we will talk more about how we're integrating this within all of our classrooms and throughout the district. So it's not only intended to move struggling learners to success, it's also intended to move our successful learners to even higher levels of success. We've had discussions before about gifted and talented, and there have been changes in the community culture in schools about what and where gifted and talented has a place in the world. And it is more often than not that the process is that we should be thinking of how to enrich every single child. Like the model that you're going to hear Hakeem, Debbie, and Tori talk about with the STEAM stations at the elementary was a cognitive, forward-thinking thought that why shouldn't every child have an access to these creative projects and get excited and engaged in the work that they're doing. These priorities were the same ones that we shared last year. We're still recovering from some of the pandemic attendance issues, but we are getting better, and some of our schools are almost actually at state expectation of 95%. There's still a wide gap of abilities between some students who have yet to learn some of the things that were missed during the pandemic. And obviously, the social emotional needs of some of our students have kind of bled over into the academic learning that we are hoping that they'll be able to catch up on. And we have a lot of students who currently have Tier 2 and 3 intervention. That means Tier 1 is primary instruction in the classroom teacher every day. Tier 2 and 3 is more specialized. In other words, someone is performing poorly academically, has a social emotional issue or some other issue that needs to be addressed by a specialist or someone who can do it in a small group or more intensively. And really, as a school district, we expect to have 85% of our students performing on grade level. We're not there as a district. Like I said, we'll talk about that a little bit more in the spring. And the idea is we don't want to have a large portion of students with Tier 2 and 3 interventions. We want them to get their regular diet of instruction from their classroom teacher to the best of our abilities. And certainly, we have those supports there, and we're going to propose tonight some additional supports, again, as we're trying to recover from that time away during the pandemic, and some of those are social emotional. And lastly, these are the 5 points of good instruction. They're based on the idea that learning is best done when students are curious, engaged, active, confident, and successful. And our job, again, is that all students feel this every time they come into school. I'm going to hand it over to our elementary leaders.
Good evening. I'm here to talk to you about our review of 22-23. And we'll start with the elementary priorities. We had our multi-age classrooms this year, 2 at A.W. Becker and 1 at Peter B. We're having another very successful year in those rooms. Students are allowed to grow at their own developmental pace, and they're flourishing both academically and socially. Data continues to show great advantages to this more flexible classroom model. Our PBL, STEAM, and whole school enrichment model continues again this year. Students are thriving in STEAM. Our PBL coach and STEAM teachers work with every classroom in the building, allowing for whole school enrichment models. Students are provided with challenging opportunities that are individualized to meet needs. Activities include highly engaged engineering practices that align with our standards and prepare students for career readiness for the CTE pathways that our middle and high schools are creating. We are building strong MTSS, multi-tiered systems of support, as a framework for continuous improvement. Our academics this year has seen the adoption and implementation of Really Great Reading, which is a K-2 foundational reading resource. with a continued support and intervention for struggling students in tiers 2 and 3. Our standards-based curriculum for science and our ELA and social studies curriculum is moving forward into the final stages of development to ensure a solid tier 1. For social emotional learning, we continue to use positive behavior intervention and support, or PBIS, and social emotional interventions such as Second Step and Close Gap to support our students' needs. Our grade 4 classroom position that we hired at Peter B. last year allowed us to keep smaller class sizes in grade 4 and meet students' needs. The building substitute position was vital in providing quality education for students in a time when the staffing shortage is at an all-time high. These positions were regularly filled on a daily basis with openings in the building still existing. The library media and technology specialist. The library media specialist has collaborated with staff to assess learning and informational needs, develop lessons and projects that support classroom and district learning goals, and help students and teachers access information across different formats. In addition, the library media specialist has developed a schedule that allows all elementary classrooms to browse and exchange books on a bi-weekly basis. And last but not least, our elementary assistant principal. This position has had a tremendous impact on staff, students, and families. The support that Mr. Goff has provided to everyone is immense through interventions with discipline, restorative practices, and working to strengthen our MTSS format.
I don't know how to move this. Thank you. Appreciate you. Well, thank you, Debbie, for that lovely introduction. So looking forward to the year 23-24, both elementary schools have implemented the Student-Based Support Team, or our SBST, as part of our MTSS model to provide a problem-solving forum where individual interventions are discussed and monitored, including our social-emotional learning interventions, which are provided by our student support team. In addition, our highest needs populations, including our self-contained classrooms and ICM students, require additional social emotional support from our student support team as well. Building coverage, as we all know, building coverage concerns continue to affect specific daily programming, such as self-contained classes, mandated positions, district priorities, including multi-age programs, and continuity of students' learning and education. Fred, you want to talk about UPK?
The board is fully aware that we're going ahead with our full-day pre-K programs, so that would be 4 full-day programs, 2 in each of our elementary buildings, and that is in addition to our community-based organization as well. We applied for a competitive grant, so at this point, if we get that competitive grant, there will be a no cost to the district for the 23-24, but it'll allow us to build capacity for sustainability in the future. We have located locations in both of our elementary buildings. There will be some minor remodeling and construction around that, again, under the grant and provided through those funds. We're going to provide curriculum writing days for our pre-K teachers so that they can look at those, look at their full-day program, make sure they have the curriculum and programming for that as well. And then there are contractual obligations for teacher preps and things of that nature. So we are looking at providing specials for our pre-K students as well, and we're looking at those. We are considering, again, through this MTSS lens, doing things creatively like speech periods, so speech teachers can push in and provide speech for Tier 1, and also things like character education and behavior as well. Ms. Agostino is going to talk a little bit about some of the positions I had mentioned a couple of weeks ago that were part of that competitive grant, how we're going to be able to utilize them in the district at those elementary buildings.
Get this out of your way.
And here are the additions that we are requesting for the 2023-24 school year. Our school social worker, which will be funded through our American Rescue Plan funds. This position will focus on our high needs population in the buildings, as well as our increasing population of universal pre-K students, as Mr. Engelhardt spoke about. To increase our art program at the elementary level, the plan is to install kilns at each of the buildings, giving our talented students more art exposure at the elementary level. A universal pre-K, as Mr. Engelhardt spoke about earlier, most of these positions, our requests will be funded through our UPK competitive grants and or partial UPK grants. And finally, our building substitute, as you see here, is listed as a wish that we have. However, to reiterate what Mrs. Newbart said, Principal Newbart said, the building substitute is and has been a vital position, providing quality education for students in a time when the staffing shortage is at an all-time high. So these positions were regularly filled on a daily basis with the openings in each of the buildings still existing. So adding building substitute support will reduce the impact of lack of substitutes has had in the buildings, especially at the elementary level. Thank you.
Building substitute?
Yes.
Okay.
They had one full-day substitute in each building in the elementary schools this year. The plan was to utilize them for math or ELA remediation if they weren't teaching, but there's not been a single day where they haven't been substituting in classrooms.
We'll have two substitute teachers in each building?
We're not proposing it at this time. We're waiting for the rest of the budget to come together, but we just wanted to let you know that that's our preference to do that. With benefits, it's approximately $75,000 per person per year. It's an expensive investment, but having someone on hand all the time. There isn't a day where they're not short at all of our buildings, so.
Yeah, I think the biggest problem we have is finding the people to hire. I mean, we probably could use 10 of them in our district, I'm guessing. It's just, they're nowhere to be found.
We've been very fortunate because we, same thing with our grant, in our positions that have been able to be created through the grant, we've been able to hire people who have been great finds, and then when a position opens up, they've slid right into a general fund position. And for some of our substitutes, they can be pre-service or pre-certification. In other words, they're working toward their certification, and we're able to hire them in and do this itinerant work. And they eventually will get their certification, and we'll hire them too because we're going to need them. On to our middle school.
Good evening. So we'll start with what we proposed last year. Our social work, we had asked for 1.5 to 2.0. We actually ended up with 2.6. The 0.6 we had shared with the two elementary schools, a social worker. So we are finding with the students in the middle school, the normal middle school type things we have to stress about, but just in general, students are struggling to interact with one another and just generally how to navigate the middle school day. So that was very crucial for us to have 2.6 this year. With CTE, as you know, we had originally discussed a criminal justice focus for career and technical education. However, in trying to keep in alignment with the high school, we changed that focus to a more general human services type focus. So students are thinking about careers they might want to get into and discussing what's available to them in the high school and getting them thinking about what courses they might like to take, where they want to take their lives. This year they're going to end their year with choosing a career. They're going to talk about what skills they feel they possess for the career that they think that they're good for and what skills they think they still need. Then they're going to look at the high school courses and think about what courses might be good to take to get them where they need to be. They've developed a resume, and they've been doing some work on budgeting, which has been quite interesting. We increased our librarian to 0.5, and we increased math and ELA to interventionists to 2 of those. This one here. Okay, so for this year, we are proposing to go from 2.6 to 3.0. That's for the addition at the elementary school. But again, we are seeing a significant amount of students who need that social worker support. Our social workers have been instrumental in what Steve and I do on a daily basis in supporting the students socially and emotionally. They have been crucial. So we're asking for that. And the CTE courses, we would like to move the teacher from the COVID funds to the general fund. And again, we want to continue our work in that area and exposing the students to different careers, bringing in business industry to work with our students to figure out where they want to go. I forgot to mention that this year we are also going to take the students up to the Career and Technical Education Center, the Albany Center, so they can see what courses are also available to them there. For our instructional coaches, we have found already this year that having more English and more math support, we have had some students who have been able to test out of needing those intervention supports. We have worked really hard to figure out what we specifically need to work on with each student. What are their specific targeted areas that each student needs? And those 2 teachers have been instrumental in doing that. We've shown really good results in our testing. Steve, can you think of anything else we've missed?
No, I think you got everything. I just want to add something, just a little snippet onto the social work services. You know, she had mentioned that how instrumental they are in our daily routine throughout the school. You know, not only do they assist us with the kids in their caseload, you know, if there are any disciplinary issues, any emotional problems throughout the school day, you know, we have Angelica and Kathy and Ida that are right there with us every step of the way. They communicate extremely well with the families of these kids. We rely on them heavily, and they are instrumental in what we do. And most importantly is that they have built a huge connection with those students that really need those in that building. They are fantastic at what they do, and just overall just great people and great at what they do.
So is there an idea to use the same 3 people and just expand the hours from the 2.6 to the 3.0 equivalent?
Correct.
Or there'd be a new hire?
No higher.
At the elementary school.
Right.
And since they're shared with the elementary, the middle school have them full-time.
Brian, wherever we're indicating additions with ARP funds or COVID funds, what's the sustainability look like? Are these one-time interventions, or is there a map forward where this is going to be absorbed?
Most of them are not expected to go beyond the end of next year, but we will be spending all of next year ascertaining if we do need to make that investment. You heard them talk about the CTE teacher moving from the COVID funds into the general fund. We'll be making some decisions next year around that. But as of right now, like most of the people that we've hired, Tina, through their board appointments, they ostensibly say they end at the conclusion of 2024. Of course, if positions open up, they're probationary employees, they would continue to work here. But we will see how things progress. There's going to be, it's not the focus of this discussion, but all of us who have paid any attention to the news understand that the state and federal government have extended themselves quite a lot in order to surmount the pandemic and support people through that. We do expect that at some juncture there's going to be a reduction in aid provided to all schools, which will also have an impact on how we proceed. So it'll be a combination of the 2 things, is pre-planning what we're going to need programmatically and figuring out how we're going to balance the tax base and our incoming monies going forward. It's going to be a very delicate balance. And what we might see is a pretty steep discontinuation. My hope, our hope, is that the financial, I'm not going to call it a cliff, the financial depression ideally will be 2 years out, and that will allow us more time to pre-plan how we're going to proceed with any of these grant positions.
So
question. CTA, the CTE course in the middle school, and people being involved in those courses. So we've done a lot of work with some new CTE programs that are going to be starting in the high school for the next 3 years, and we started a new one this year. So I would assume, like this time of year, I'm guessing that guidance counselors are sitting down with 8th grade students, developing a plan on what they possibly want to do in the high school. Are we, like, communication, I don't know, like, our guidance counselors in the high school, I know a lot of them are involved in these programs, and there's other curriculum specialists and things that are involved. I just want to make sure there's communication between, I guess, the two schools and moving forward.
The good news is, with the work that they've been doing with the CTE teacher and Kara Buckley, there's much more articulation because it's an active exploration. It's not just a one-stop, go over and get the assembly in the high school. Instead, it's actually a part of the course that they're taking in the middle school, which is to think about their careers and to look at the program at the high school and figure out where they may want to go. And you're right, we're just about to talk about those new programs. There are a lot more opportunities for kids, even in-house, beyond the scope of BOCES.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Maureen Martin, who is our work-based development coordinator and the content specialist for technology, business, family and consumer science, and library, thank you. She just emailed me again last week saying, 3rd one in a year. Yay us. So we set this roadmap out maybe 3 years ago. And if you can remember way back, 5-6 years ago, we held a number of community forums to talk about what it is we believe were important for our students and our community. And work-based readiness was a key component of that. So I am very pleased by the work of those departments and Maureen and the principals and the counselors and Fred, anyone who's had a hand in obtaining these this is the best thing ever. So we started with the Seal of Biliteracy in 2021, which is a diploma credential. So it's an additional, similar to an Advanced Regents diploma, it's a credential, it's a nice, beautiful seal that goes on the physical diploma. And then moving into CTE pathways. These are the same credentialed type programs that are offered at Cap Region BOCES. You can walk out of our high school with a CTE pathway credential. That is a big deal. And that involves not only the coursework and training, but also there's some work-based development and experiences around that, portfolio work. And as you can see, the business management and entrepreneurial was approved last year. Building sciences and tech has been approved. Human services is in its preliminary approval, and that's the one that the middle school was speaking about. And that's a pretty broad-based service. We can choose to go in many different directions for that. We could do early childhood education. We could do health or hospitality. There's a lot of different directions we can go, and we have some years to develop that program. And I'll show you the list of coursework in a moment. Seal of Civic Readiness, another credential, and then our next hope is the Arts Assessment Pathway. For a school our size, this is a big deal, and I can't say how excited I am. So some of these come with college credits as well. And of course, we're really trying to hone in on the students' essential skills for employability when they leave here. They may go to college, they may not go into any one of these particular businesses right out of school, but they're going to have a leg up on everyone around them. So we've showed these list of these coursework over the last 2 years, and they've continued to adapt as time has gone on. One of the things that we're going to need to deliver this, and you'll see in a couple slides, is an additional technology teacher and additionally family and consumer science teacher, both of whom are very difficult to find in New York State. That doesn't mean we're not going to try. One of the differences between the way we've been delivering programs to date is anybody with any teaching certification can teach one of these courses. But in order for it to be eligible for the CTE pathway, they must be certified in one of those credentialed areas. That's why it's so important for us to find additional certificated teachers in those areas. The experiences that the kids have had through work-based learning, through CEIP, which is Career Exploration Internship Program, and other opportunities through our partnerships with local companies, and you're going to see a list of that momentarily, has been continued to broaden and broaden. So our kids are getting out into the world and they're getting real-world experience. Learning the information from our texts and from our teachers is essential. It's the foundational stuff that gives them the information they need, but they have to go out in the world and apply it. Without the application, it really doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So some of the things that have happened this year, we've hosted our career fairs and our business fairs. We've got an upcoming club fair. I know it's something we talked about at the board level. And we've had presentations from local meteorologists to statisticians from the New York Mets, as well as representatives from various colleges and military branches of service. Again, if we can't get our kids out into the world, we want to bring the world into our kids. Some of the partnerships that you've heard us talk about on the left-hand side, and our content specialists and our work with Questar 3 BOCES. We have Jim Church, who's helped us extensively at the elementary schools and has also helped with our secondary schools. We have really grown our partnerships with people in the community. These folks have offered us time, their expertise, their money, their locations for our students to go and work. And obviously, if you were at the musical, most of those names were in the playbill for the musical this past weekend. But the list continues to grow, and it's better for our community businesses as well to have this partnership, because they obviously have the potential for streamlined workforce development. So our focus continues to be the expansion of CTE, our career and technical education programs. Last year we had the addition of the Administrative Director of Athletics and PE and Health. As we move forward, we are going to expand our CHS and UHS offerings. That's college in the high school and university in the high school. We are doing some assessment and reevaluation of our Operation Graduation program. I know the building leadership team was speaking about that program a couple weeks ago. That's for our at-promise kids who we know we need a little extra help in order to get to graduation. And I talked about those two additional teachers, facts and technology. Yes?
Teachers, and especially in the certification areas that we know we're going to need, when do we start, or have we ever started posting for them yet?
Yeah.
I understand the budget, waits a budget, but if we wait too long, all the good teachers could be gone.
They'll be going out at the beginning of next week at the latest. We have both our list of retirees, and we have these new folks that will be interested in developing. You know, we talk all the time about the law of diminishing returns. If we go out in January, will we hire someone that might change their mind prior to their actual deployment? And then to your point, you wait too long and other people have already done that. And the budget season is a difficult one because these two positions are ones that we'd be putting out, and we're not sure that they'll actually exist. So, and really, just a quick listing of the coursework that we know will have to happen. There is a possibility we may be able to delay on the technology teacher. If we're unable to do it for this year, we might be able to push it off into next year. It all comes down to the progression of coursework for those particular programs, but we know we absolutely need a family and consumer science teacher going into next year. If we can find a technology teacher this year, you bet we're going to snatch them up. A very rare bird. Any other questions about the high school? All right. And Colleen, send it your way.
Okay,
Good evening, everyone. I am going to follow suit and start by providing you with a brief overview of some of the additions that we talked about last year during budget development during the 22-23 school year. So first off is the addition of our 16 to 21-year-old self-contained program. And this program has allowed us to continue to program for our students until they age out at the age of 21, until they receive a credential or a local diploma, and it has been working out wonderfully. We currently have a student who is interning as a BA in one of our schools, so we're hoping to continue to build the program in the future and provide more opportunities for our students moving forward. We also talked about the transition coordinator position last year. So this current year, we do have a transition coordinator who we increased the release time, so she gets 1 period off a day, as well as a stipend. And this has allowed us to really increase our students' access and opportunity to outside agencies such as OPWD and Access VR. In addition to that, has also allowed us to increase the amount of training and professional development to our staff and grade 6 through grade 12. So to date, we have had our staff training in 6 different workshops, and we continue to use her in moving forward to next year. In addition to that, we have also brought on additional curriculum to the special education department. Over the past 3 years, we have brought evidence-based curriculum to support our special education students throughout the district. Really great reading, Edmar curriculum, and unique curriculum, all of which we are seeing be successful in the classroom, and we are really looking forward to continuing the focus and ensuring the fidelity of the implementation of this curriculum moving forward. Okay, so as we look to the 23-24 school year, I want to first start off by saying that we are able to provide the same continuum of services district-wide K-12 with our existing staff. And Dr. Bailey mentioned in the high school presentation that I'm really excited to announce that we are offering unified PE at the high school level next year, which is an additional offering for our students with disabilities. So next year we are proposing a special education instructional coach and transition coordinator for the secondary level, supporting staff, students, and families in grades 6 through 12. The instructional coach will be an advisor, a research specialist, a curriculum coordinator, and an alternate chairperson, supporting all staff at the middle school and high school. In the past, we've used outside consultants to advise, support, and provide recommendations to improve the overall quality of our programming. This year, we are currently using a consultant in the areas of integrated co-teaching and in our self-contained classrooms. We believe that if we are able to support this work in-house by myself, our assistant director, and an instructional coach, that we would be able to provide consistent support and feedback to our teachers and building administrators, and in turn build the capacity of our educators and programs. This instructional coach will also act as a transition coordinator throughout the district and continue to develop, implement, and monitor our district-wide plan to provide appropriate and effective transition services. So we currently have an FTE available to meet this need, so we are requesting this position, and there's no additional expense to it. Okay, any questions about that? So currently, if you look at our programming at the high school level, we have 10 FTEs. So our teachers are able to teach 5 instructional classes with 1 duty. And so if the simple math there is with 10 teachers, that gives us the ability to program for 50 sections. So next year, I have projections of needing 32 core programs, so that's for math, English, social studies, science, and then an estimated 10 to 11 resource rooms and/or academic tutorials, bringing up, that total to 42. So we have over a full-time equivalent that we've freed up, and our numbers in special education are fluid. We had 27 students transfer in this current school year from July 1 until now. So at this point, and there's still some flexibility in there as well. So with what we're proposing, we would have 9 teachers at the high school. 2 of those teachers are self-contained teachers, and then 7 teachers would be primarily supporting general education in our co-taught setting. So between those 7 teachers, what it would look like, Ray, would be 6 teachers would be teaching 3 core content classes, and then they'd have space for 2 additional instructional programs, either academic tutorial or resource room, and then our 1 teacher would be teaching 4 cores with 1 resource room and academic tutorial. I projected 10 or 11 needs for academic tutorial or resource room, and with even decreasing in FTE at the high school, that still allows for 13 sections of resource room or academic tutorial.
So do we have 10 people, or do we have to get rid of somebody and bring in this person?
No. So we have 10 right now, and as I mentioned, with the projections that we have right now, I have over a FTE that doesn't have any assignments.
But so is that a special ed teacher who's just now going to assume this role? Is that?
Yes.
Okay. And
yes.
You have somebody in mind that is qualified that's.
So we're going to work on, if this is approved, we will work on the roles and responsibilities of that position, and then anybody that would have a special education degree would be able to apply and interview for it, and then we would go from there.
So it's not actually a teaching position, but it's.
It's an instructional coach position.
But it's going to be a special ed teacher.
Right.
Okay.
Right. So, the day-to-day, as I mentioned, some chairperson responsibilities, team meetings, work, closely with building administration at both the middle school level and the high school level with scheduling, testing accommodations, overall support and guidance is what we're looking for that person to do.
My only concern is that if you're a special ed teacher, that does not sound the slightest bit interesting to me. Because I think most teachers want to deal with kids. Mm-hmm. What happens if nobody wants it? Then
right. I mean, I'm not sure. We'd have to figure that out when it comes. I think we have some really strong teacher leaders, across the district. So I'm hoping that one of those folks would want to change it up and maybe take on this opportunity.
Hopefully, you have somebody in mind that you can go to and say, "Hey, this would fit," because
right.
Otherwise, you have 10 teachers and a spot open that nobody wants. And
any other questions? All right. So Mr. Engelhardt spoke briefly about the competitive grants for UPK. So we are also proposing the hiring of an early childhood school psychologist and a speech language pathologist funded through the UPK competitive grants. These 2 positions will address and meet multiple needs at our preschool and elementary levels, such as supporting academic, social, language, and emotional readiness in our UPK and kindergarten classes, support transitions between pre-K and kindergarten, monitor and support MTSS in our pre-K and kindergarten classrooms, and then act as an evaluator for preschool special education and fulfill the role of a chairperson. Yes, but Mr. Engelhardt, you've told me that the grant is...
It's in review now, and BOCES is...
The success rate is high, I've heard.
100%. So
and is it renewable?
It's an annual renewal.
Okay.
So even though these positions will be funded by the UPK competitive grant, they could provide services to the broader elementary community?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
We divided our athletics presentation into 3 primary areas, taking a quick look at enrollment for teams, coaching, and students. And then we talked about uniform replacement, but wanting to talk about proposed increases because we know there's going to be some, well, 2 things. There's obviously price escalation, but hiccups surrounding any rebranding we have to do, and then the overall athletic budget.
Thank you, Brian. So we just wanted to put this chart together to give everyone an idea where we are at as far as numbers-wise for the school year with participation with athletics, not only our student athletes, but also our coaches and volunteers and our number of teams. So you'll see that the numbers are broken down by sport season, number of teams for winter, fall, and spring. I did just want to point out, obviously with spring sports just starting this week and a snow day thrown in there, that we are still going through our spring sports tryouts. So the asterisk down at the bottom for number of athletes for spring, that's just our student registrations through Family ID. So those aren't official final numbers yet for rosters, but I will update that as soon as our rosters are finalized for JV and varsity sports at the end of this week, and then modified at the end of next week. I just wanted to say that we appreciate all of our coaches' efforts and all of our volunteers that have been assisting with our students this school year. It's really been a pleasure to be a part of it, and I'm just thankful for all the adults that work hard and tirelessly to make sure our students have the best opportunities and experience possible. So just moving on, again, as Dr. Bailey said, for our uniform replacement schedule. We had talked about this at a previous meeting, so we just tried to take some of that feedback to make a little bit of edits to what we were looking at projecting for the next 4 years. Again, we talked about previously the 5 years moving to a 4-year replacement plan. We also talked about moving the same teams for all 3 levels, for example, to that same year to try to keep consistent. So those are just the few changes that we proposed to the original uniform replacement schedule that we had put together.
At the meeting when we brought that up, girls modified soccer is not in Group A. We did bring
Yes.
that up, and Jenny brought that up.
Yes.
That those uniforms don't match, they're not right sizes, so, but that's still showing in Group D. I think that,
Yes, so that was just one point I wanted to talk about, so thank
Okay.
you for bringing that up. So just with the remaining budget funds that we have for the 22-23 school year, those teams in Group D, they're actually part of this year's, some of those teams are part of this year's replacement schedule, so those are going to be rectified. So we did have issues with girls modified soccer in the fall, so that's going to be taken care of before the end of the school year to make sure that we're prepared for the fall season so those students are all set.
perfect, thank you.
So another point, boys JV and varsity soccer, that was one thing that didn't get ordered. I know that definitely needs to happen before the end of the school year. And I've been working with Jesse to make sure that we have those funds to allocate towards those teams that haven't been ordered yet to make sure that those teams are all set and on the schedule.
The other one was we did varsity basketball boys. I'm not sure if we did, well, girls are coming, but we didn't do JV and modified. We only did varsity. So is this going to be a 6-year gap? And my next thing is, of course, the big question is, are any of these uniforms going to have to be changed around because of our logo before these dates? And what happens with our budget then? So like some of our uniforms, like that we may not be able to wait until 25, 26 if we have to remove a spear or Indians. So
We're all set.
we're working on that.
Jen went through all of them, and the ones that we knew would be an issue are conspicuously placed up on the left side. And you know that we just went through the varsity basketball team, boys varsity basketball team, and noticed they're lined up again so that we stay in sync with all the teams in 23-24.
Well, varsity basketball is in 25, 26. They just got new uniforms and they have a spear. The JV and modified did not get new uniforms.
You know, I apologize,
I have no
Cindy.
idea
It looks
what
like,
they
yeah, you're
I
exactly
think it
right.
says Indians.
Right.
Yep. I think we anticipated that if we needed to, we would move them up, but we're going to wait on the state to tell us that we have to do that.
By a certain time.
Right.
I know this is not perfect by any means. We're just trying to massage it to make sure it works the best financially for the district, and also that, you know, we're trying to maintain that schedule if we can to try to stick to that moving forward with the 4-year plan. But we know that there are some hiccups that we're going to have to go through the next couple of years to make sure that we're consistent.
Can I ask one more question?
Sure.
I know a new logo is down the road, I'm waiting for guidance, but if we start ordering uniforms, more uniforms and everything that says RCS, and next year we have a new logo, and then we start ordering some teams that say something different, is that going to be an issue? Are we going to have some team, a lag period where some uniforms are going to say RCS, and then the other ones are going to have the new logo on it?
Well, we're always going to be
Should just be-
RCS.
So that's not what I mean. What I mean is
Right.
like, Indians are on some of the uniforms now, and some of them say RCS. If right now they're all ordered RCS, and then we go to do a new logo, and then say football comes up, or who's ever on the next year, now suddenly they have the names out, I'm just bringing
I'm
it up.
thinking that once if we were to come up with a new name, or it would just go into the next cycle.
Next cycle?
Like if we go to, whatever it is, RCS X, then we would just add X 4 years from now.
For your next cycle.
That's sort of what I was thinking, Teddy, as well.
Okay.
I'm just trying to maintain the consistency with the colors and maybe the brand for all 3 levels, whether that says RCS, and then moving forward to our next step with what we decide with the logo moving forward. And again, I just wanted to reiterate that we obviously want our students to be safely and properly equipped, and, obviously feeling that RCS pride to make sure that our students are happy and excited about what they're wearing with our athletic competitions.
Dr. Bailey, last meeting we discussed, again, back to spears and things on our, one of the things was wrestling mats, like that we had to replace. Like, is that something we would just keep out of the budget? Because that was like $30,000 or something.
That has not been added to this proposed budget for the athletic department. Our
Right.
plan was to, well, 2 things. One of the tasks the board asked me to do was check and see which of the items on the list could be considered to be part of a referendum, and also for us to consider if we paid for it with other funding sources, such as grants or gift monies that are given to the district through pilot or other means. Out of that entire list, the wrestling mats was one we were actually waiting on our architect to answer on as to whether or not it's something that is able to be included in a referendum.
Right.
We know that obviously if we were to do the stadium field, which is a great expense, that is unquestionably a referendum. And we would want the state 72% reimbursement on that. So as
Right.
many things as we can fit in there, but that $30,000 is not on this budget.
Would the field be considered equipment, or no? But mats, would wrestling mats be considered?
That's why I say it's,
Right, maybe?
there's, what they do is they allow you to purchase a certain percentage in equipment when you do construction projects. Like if you were to build new classrooms, they allow you to help fill
Right.
it with the right equipment.
Yeah.
But the wrestling mats are a little, that's the missing link right now, so we have to figure that out. Like, I think the benefit obviously is if we're able to get aided on it, that's a win for us, rather than having to do the whole expense up front. But I don't know how it would work either with that purchasing program through the state wrestling competition. We'd have to find out. There's still
Right.
some missing pieces.
And if we purchase things like that through, like our other funds, through what we get from Lafarge and things, it wouldn't go into this budget, correct? It would just be
Correct. It wouldn't be reflected in there.
Got it.
So we have another fund that's for like local donations, so it would be.
Okay. So we don't need to make her equipment budget, $100,000 instead of $10,000. Okay.
I think Jesse was going to assist
Yeah,
with
of
the
course.
slides.
So this, again, is set up like I have had in my previous budget presentations. This is the athletics portion of the budget. Again, you'll see the proposed budget in the middle there, and then last year's budget and the difference. First line is salaries, and you'll see a significant increase there of a little over $100,000. That is just a move, a budget move. Last year, the AD position was under the high school position, and we've just moved it down. So we decreased that by the $100,000 and increased the athletics. It's just more appropriate spot for it. So that's just an increase for that. Go ahead. Yeah, so what happened was last year it was in the high school admin budget. and then we just moved it down to the athletics. It's a
Shouldn't it be in the district admin budget, considering it's health?
Well, it would be broken out differently. I'm not talking about the three-part budget. I'm just talking about where it's located in our overall budget. I feel like the athletic director should be in the athletic.
But it's not just athletic, that's what I'm saying. It's health and wellness, phys ed, so I'm not sure.
I could break it out a little bit more if you would prefer that, but I thought it would be a little bit.
It doesn't matter to me, I'm just trying to figure where it
So we
belongs.
have.
It sounds like a district position.
Right. Well, it would be a district athletic position, I would feel, in my personal opinion, especially with reporting at the end of the year with our ST3. I feel this would be a more appropriate location for the expense.
Even though it contains teaching, like.
We could break it out with, again, with a three-part budget. We could do a percentage for instructional and support. I think that's appropriate.
That's fine.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. Any other questions on that? Okay. Next line is equipment. This equipment line is some of our larger ticket items, like a softball pitching machine, a timing system for our aquatics facility, and other like a basketball shooting machine, and possibly mats. But so this is the higher ticket items. We feel that we don't need to see an increase, and we do have a plan for kind of replacement plan that we have. We will be working on for those funds.
Come up with a list of like all our inventory.
Right, yeah, so the ticket, yeah, right, and then we'll work with coaches and work with the AD to see which ones are appropriate. You know, they have 5-year lives, 10-year lives, and see where things are starting to fall off, and then we'll, I know we're having a little issue with the aquatics timing machine, so I know that would be towards the top of the list. But yeah, we're working closely with the AD and the coaches.
Do we, like, next year, 23-24, I mean, would we put into this budget as far as possible, like, increases, like in salaries being, like, within contract negotiations and things coming next year? Is that something you can project?
Yeah, we have a projection for that, but we don't feel comfortable discussing it because we're in negotiations right now.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
So when would we put that in?
Well, it's in the budget now. I'm just not, I don't feel like it's an appropriate time right now to discuss it.
That really makes
Matt
no
might
sense.
Matt might disagree, but.
It's there somewhere, but we just don't know where it is right now. Just not talking about it.
Well, I mean, I'll be honest. I mean, it's just, I mean, it's a big thing. I mean, it's like getting, you know, we can't get people to coach. So obviously it's something that we have to budget. Just like we run into issues with getting staff to take care of clubs. We can't get people to do that either. I'm not saying it's all financial, but it's, you know, something that we have to project. And maybe there's other ways, whether it's, you know, staff or outside of staff, of trying to persuade people to take these positions.
So you've got it figured into the general budget, but we're not showing it in athletics because it's still being negotiated. Makes sense. Perfect sense.
Okay, moving down to fees and service. So this includes official fees, entry fees, and dues. We did see a little bit of increase due to some of the fees and dues we have for some of the conferences we're in. So we did see an increase in a few of those, so that's why you see the increase there. Yes.
I'm surprised that hasn't gone up more.
Any more questions?
No.
Oh, okay. So the BOCES, we do have BOCES services that we do for athletics, and this is for our huddle camera that we use, and it is, we see a flat rate. There was no increase this year. Yes. So last is materials and supplies. So this would see the uniforms, general supplies, and awards, and that increase is due to the uniform budget going up slightly.
Yeah. When you speak about that huddle camera and the BOCES expense, that's just a fee for Broadcasting and taping?
Yeah.
Not necessarily the
So my
games?
understanding is, and I don't know the logistics behind all of it, I know it is a service that we get through them. We're able to reach out to them and ask if we're having any issues with it, and they help us fix the cameras and along
Right.
those lines.
Do you know if there's any place in our budget, and this might be more, I don't know if it's Bill Schrump's budget or athletic budget or anything else, of expanding our cameras or our systems so we're able to broadcast more than just our main field and main gym, and it's possible that we could do the middle school gym,
Tennis,
the baseball field, the
baseball.
softball field, the modified soccer field, any other
Yeah,
options with moving this thing around. I don't know if it's, we have to purchase another camera, we have to purchase another whatever.
Yeah, we could definitely look into it. I haven't been in any discussions along those lines, but it's definitely something we can definitely look into.
Yeah,
Do you think
well,
it's-
that might be the next question,
Yeah.
Bill will wonder about Wi-Fi and things, but I mean,
Yeah, I
it's
know
something-
I know the one we have now is stationary. It's not something you can pick up and move.
Well, the huddle system is not the best for that. I mean, it's great for what they're using it for, but for live streaming so that people can see it, it's awful because it moves anytime somebody moves.
Yeah,
You'd be
okay.
better off having somebody like Brian back there with his camera and go and just live stream to YouTube. Not throwing you under the bus, but
if you
somebody doing it that way would be more efficient than the huddle system and a lot cheaper.
It would be wonderful to have a thriving AV club where we have students that learn how to do that and do that well.
Yeah, I mean, I was speaking to the AD at Brad Alden Perth, and I know he had some different things set up, and I mean, they're dealing with the same thing, wondering of, when the next thing's coming out for the baseball fields or the softball fields. I mean, people like it, so I think schools, are pushing for it, and parents are pushing for it, for people that can't get to games.
We can definitely look into some kind of solution, though. Maybe some other districts are doing something that's, working out for them, and then we can look into as well.
I think it's all just new and up and coming, and,
It definitely help our athletes, so we'll definitely look into it.
Let me know if you look into it. I've already done a lot of it, so.
Have you? Okay, maybe we'll have to.
Not through Huddle.
Okay.
Through YouTube, and it's free, so.
Hey.
Once you get the equipment, it's free.
Great. So any other athletic budget
That's like your-
questions?
that's right.
Teacher of the week.
The sports, which they're trying out for now. I know last year with softball, especially modified softball, they didn't even really have a bag. It was ripped and two people had to carry it. Has everything like that been inventoried for the upcoming spring season? So before it starts, we make sure they all have appropriate equipment, bags, things like that. Because last year, literally, two girls had to carry a half-strip bag.
Right, yeah,
So-
no, I'm working with the spring coaches and they're letting me know their needs.
Okay.
I've been going back through end-of-season reports from last year that list specific items that coaches are in need of. So making sure I know that catching equipment for modified softball is also definitely something we need to prioritize as well for safety for the kids. So just keeping in mind all those things and utilizing our budget money, what we have left to the best of our ability to get us through spring sports and what the kids need. So definitely.
Okay, good.
Any additional questions on athletics before we move on?
We're going to skip this one, go back to it.
Sure, of course.
Thank you, John.
Yep.
Thank you.
So before we go to the budget, the numbers that Jesse, it's the sum total of things that we're talking about, you heard an awful lot of information. I just wanted to summarize it in a cohesive way. All that the leaders have asked for as part of this upcoming school budget is partially funding the UPK, 2 teachers and 2 TAs. Because right now, as UPK currently stands, we partially fund the staff. It's not fully paid for through the grant. Although the grant has given us more money than it has historically given us, we still pay a little bit. We know that for these new staff, we will likely still have to pay a portion of their salary. With the Universal Pre-K Competitive Grant, that may help take care of that. So that'd be a good thing. Middle school is just asking to move their CTE teacher into the general fund. High school, we're looking for the 2 teachers. The only other thing that we mentioned was the 2 kilns at the elementary school. They're about $6,000 each, including installation. So there was a lot of discussion about program, about grant monies supporting staff, but in the end, the investment is not too much in the overall scheme of the budget. Now, say it again, Mike?
What about the building substitutes that we talked about?
If we chose to put them in there, the building substitutes would be,
Yeah.
we're going to the last year of the grant. If we can support it within the grant, that's how we'll do it. That's how they're being paid right now. And there's a possibility that we may ask to be in the general fund. As we talked about before, the folks that most of the ones that we've hired have been great finds, and they have been able to roll right into permanent positions for us. So we'll go backward from there. Jesse's going to do a quick inventory of the staffing that we have in the district.
So this will be the instructional staff for the 23-24 as we presented it so far. So the big ticket items there would be the teachers unit, which would include all the teachers, nurses, regular ed teachers, special ed teachers, guidance counselors, psychologists. I hope I'm not missing anybody, but it's basically everybody that falls under that unit. I didn't want to throw everybody on there. Just wanted to make sure I got those big ticket items. Also, we have teacher assistant, building aides, right around 80. So this would include both positions that are aided by our general budget and also by grant-funded ways. This also includes the positions that Dr. Bailey just mentioned. Any questions on that? And you do see some points, like a 0.5 or a 0.8. We do have some employees that are not full-time, so. Any questions on those? And I'm going backwards now, yeah. Okay, so this is the instructional budget. This does not include athletics. I backed out athletics because I already presented them. Again, set up the same way as we've done in previous slides. First line being salaries. So this, the first line here includes all the instructional staff, which includes building admin, teachers, regular and special ed, teacher assistant, building aides, and social workers, guidance counselors, nurses, psychologists, and IT staff. And that increase is due to contract obligations.
And the additional staff.
And yes, and also, retirements and additional staff as well. Any questions along those lines? Okay, next line is equipment. So this is our equipment for the instructional staff and also furniture. This is a large increase of this is due to the increase in our tech department. And we discussed this before. We increased it to work with our kind of our replacement plan with Chromebooks and other items within the district. So that's about 40,000 of that is for that. So next line is fees and services. So this is field trips, software, staff development or training, textbooks. So there is a small decrease for this, and this was because we moved a lot of our software purchases to BOCES so we can get some aid on it. So we moved it from those budget lines into the BOCES budget line. So next line is the BOCES services. So this includes our CTE program through BOCES, our special education students that attend BOCES programs, software, and the increase there is due to increase to some of the services. So last line is materials and supplies. This includes program supplies for all of the buildings. And the increase there is, we did a slight increase for the arts and music departments. Any questions for those? All right, thank you.
When Jesse finishes the presentation, he always finishes with a slide that says what we're going to do next time. Next time at the budget workshop is a presentation of the three-part budget. We added that March 29th meeting because we didn't want to be presenting the budget as an entire package to the board on the same night that you would be expected to vote on it. So we appreciate your graciousness and being willing to be on that night. So there'll be no agenda. It'll just be a presentation on the overall budget and any additional questions before it shows up as a referendum or a resolution in our April meeting. Anything else for next time?
No, that's it.
No, that's it. Any other questions? Yes, Ed.
Level, Debbie was talking about, I may have heard it wrong, so if I did, increasing reading in tiers 2 and 3 with help towards reading. But what about even at tier 1? I mean, the numbers, the ELA, the concern, is there any focus going back to tier 1 as well? So kids are actually going to be grasping, going forward. The keys are reading, writing, being able to articulate things, and speaking. So she's talked specifically of 2 and 3, but what about tier 1? Is there a different direction in teaching reading, or is it still all phonics based, or what's the direction with that?
The general consensus is that a child who isn't reading on grade level by 3rd grade is likely to be behind for the rest of their careers. So the focus unquestionably over the past 2 years has been on early childhood, pre-K to 2nd grade. And both Debbie and Colleen mentioned the implementation of really great reading. We did our mid-year, and Fred or one of the elementary folks may be able to better describe it, but we did our mid-year benchmark testing, and the results on our youngest learners with working with our kids with a consistent intervention at tier 1 or consistent good instruction at tier 1 showed great gains. I mentioned you want at least 85% of your children on grade level for whatever the topic is. I think that in those mid-year assessments, we showed some of our greatest gains that any of us can remember. You want any more details?
We can talk about it more when we talk about our data presentation.
Okay. So that has been a part of their programming. We haven't hired additional staff, but they've been trying something different with uniformity, and we will include some of that data when we present on our academic outcomes so far. Yeah, you wouldn't have known necessarily when they went through and they were talking about the reading programs, you wouldn't have known that it was that tier 1.
Right, that's not even what I asked. Thank you.
Yeah.
Academic outcomes. Is that
To
part
be-
of the budget process?
To
or
be
is-
honest, well, we've already, the leaders have already included in their mindset reflections on what the data says, what our remediation plans are. The budget and proposals we have reflect that. To be honest, we were going to embed that tonight, and it would have made this presentation about the money another hour, an hour and a half. We wanted to pull it aside, knowing that we absolutely reflected in our minds what we need instructionally as we prepared this. But we wanted to move a little bit beyond these next 2 meetings because we knew they would be full of the budgetary stuff.
Okay. So when is that presentation going to be made then?
I think the end of April, the second meeting in April is in April 19th.
Okay. And that's going to address the ELA scores and
Yeah.
the graduation rates
Yep.
and the dropout rates?
Yep.
Those
We'll talk
issues that I
about
raised a month
attendance,
ago?
exactly, our state test scores 3 through 8, our Regents exam scores, how we compare to other local school districts, and we'll be able to talk more about what are some of our philosophies and the teams that we're working with to try and remediate that. I mentioned before the most disappointing thing, which has for 30, 40 years has always been, except for Regents exams, which we know our Regents exam scores right after the students take them, essentially. We don't know what other students in other schools did, which is relevant, until much later, but not getting the data until 4 weeks ago is nonsense. We're trying to correct students' flight in February for the tests that are in March and April. It's not rational. So that's why we do rely a lot on our benchmarking and our progress monitoring, because we can't wait for 6 months for those results to come in. And basically, when we're writing our goals and action plans, targets and action plans, we're actually planning for the year after, because you can't build something right now that's going to fly in the next 2 months.
Understood, but we need to take a cold, hard look at the reality right now.
Yeah.
I'm frustrated because I watch RCS lose ground against the rest of the state. And I'm even more frustrated because today there was an article in the Times-Union that New York State is losing ground as opposed to the rest of the country as a result of the COVID setbacks. So as a whole, New York State came out on the bad side of the COVID impact. And within New York State, RCS is falling farther and farther behind state standards in ELA and graduation rates and dropout rates. There are some bright spots, right? As I went through the data, there are certainly some bright spots which are great, but ELA, it drives everything, right? ELA is the foundation for everything else that comes. If we can't get reading and writing right, what are we doing? We need to focus on the core, and it runs through the budget, it runs through the academic outcomes, it runs through everything we do here. So I heard a lot of buzzwords, honestly, in the budget presentation about academics. I've heard different teaching models. What I haven't heard is what we're actually going to do to address the cold, hard reality that this district is facing.
And I think one of the stark things that's very beneficial from when they finally do share the data is being able to see it in alignment with regional, local, regional, and similar schools throughout the state, because it gives it more perspective. Our students are just as capable as students in the suburban council schools here, and there's no reason why we shouldn't be performing at that level if we have the same resources at our disposal.
And that begs the question, what are they doing that we're not? What do we need to do better to keep pace with them? Because there is no difference in the students, right? The students are just as capable here as they are in any other district. What's the missing piece of the equation? Why are we falling behind?
Yeah, great questions. And that is something that will definitely be a component of our work and our presentation in April.
I also heard us mention the effects of COVID. We know that we've all received a lot of support in financial measures. We've talked about putting things into place to try to close the gap, which is what it was earmarked for. It would be really helpful to understand in smaller intervals of time how those interventions did help. What things worked well, what things we would like to do differently, because ultimately it will come back on the district to have to keep working on those gaps. And what we've learned in this funded period of time is what we want to be able to replicate when we have to continue it with our resources.
And that'll help with our budget development for 24-25. Yeah. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you. So we have no hearings and petitions in the first session. I need a motion for one or all of the business considerations.
Make a motion for all, 6-1 through 6-13.
Okay? Do I have a second?
Go ahead.
No, we got to second it and then we'll.
Second.
Discussion.
No, I was going to second. You're good.
I have a question on 6-7. The substitute pay rate list. I know we talked about substitute issue and everything last time. It's not on here, but I wanted to talk about the current teachers who are subbing for other classes. And the problem particularly was with the high school. Do we have a rough estimate of the numbers of like how many teachers are currently subbing for other teachers in the district like last month? Was it on that sheet? I didn't bring it tonight. Was it like?
Yeah, we did for January. You did a snapshot of the 4 weeks in January.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is, I understand $20, and I understand doing the math. Yes, it could be extra money, but compared to other districts, and couldn't we up that? I mean, if the goal is to not have the shortage, and the teachers are already there, it seems like it would be money well spent. Maybe it's $30.
You mean just for
The teachers that are currently there to cover a class.
I think that's negotiated, right? Is that in the contract?
That's.
It's not?
Yeah, it's negotiated.
I'm not saying it can be done right now, but maybe it's like, okay, $10 more, that's 50% more. Would that get more of the teachers in the high school to say, hey, it's worth my time? The teachers are already there. The best thing to do is fill those substitute classrooms with the teachers that are already in your building. So that's not on here, but maybe it could be in the future. Have any of these rates here increased, or is just the rate from the last time?
This one's teaching assistants.
It adds the teaching assistants category, but all the other rates are remain the same, correct?
In this round, yes, but we've raised substitute rates for outside substitutes twice in the last year and a half.
Okay.
And we added the $200 for retirees. Some school districts are paying $200 for any retired teachers from anywhere. That's something we're going to talk to BOCES about and see if that's relevant for us. Because there's, in the classroom, it's a very different world when you have a certified teacher coming in and doing the work rather than just someone who has time and maybe has a little bit of instructional education.
Because it just seems to me like the priority should be, I don't know what the answer is, whether it's the climate or whether it's the money, but we need to fill those slots. With substitutes and figure out a way going forward how to do that. Is it a little bit more money? Would people come from other districts? Instead of going to Bethlehem, would they come here if it was a little bit more? I don't know what their rates are. It just seems like, the substitute issue that we had, we should find ways to try to rectify that.
Unfortunately, it's an issue that's everywhere. I mean, I'm all
You're
for
right.
raising it if we can, but in my district, it's higher, and there are still a large number of teachers that are not interested because they're planning and they're grading, and they just, it's hard when you're teaching that many classes already to take on another. And the outside subs, we have the same issue, they're just not there. I don't know how much you could raise it before it's just, you might as well hire another full-time teacher if you can get them.
No, I hear you.
Subbing is a thankless job, and that's part of the problem.
To put it in perspective, a step one teacher makes approximately $255 a day, and we're paying retired teachers $200 a day to sub.
No, retired teachers, I think, is good. I was just talking about the other numbers. If they're on par, that's great. But I think that the teachers who, I'm not a teacher, but the teachers who are subbing a class $20, I've heard teachers, it's not worth it. I've heard them say that to me. So, maybe $30. See what that looks like budgetary-wise and numbers. It may be money well spent. Maybe it's not. I'm just,
Contract, right. Yeah.
Well, for the next contract, like Matt said,
But it's not in there now at all, right?
It is a part of the contract.
It is. You just said-
We are talking about collective bargaining here at the table, yes.
Right.
Well, that answered my question. It's part of negotiations, so.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, something else? What was that? Any other discussion?
Yeah, 611.
611.
Just have a couple of bullets on that. Hecate?
What did you ask?
Like, just a
Since
couple
11
points,
is our
talking points on
agreement
it?
for
I thought you
the,
were going to line up the questions.
No.
Hecate is the solar farm on 101, or on
Right.
the chicken farm. This is the one that we wrangled with 2 years ago, and now they're finally in construction and plan to begin payments in 2023. So there were two things that we did as part of the agreement. One was taxes, approximately $9,100 and change dollars for taxes, and then $51,000 a year for 25 years for the community host benefit agreement.
Okay.
So both of those payments will roll on in 2023. When we were talking at the last meeting about some of our rebranding expectations, this is one of those areas when you have a host benefit agreement that money can be used. It doesn't come in as
An
tax levy
education,
income.
right.
Correct. Yeah. So we could use that money to do projects like that, or to buy a basketball pitching machine or whatever.
Basketball pitching?
I know, but isn't that what you said?
it's a shooting machine for basketball,
Shooting
pitching
machine.
machine for softball.
Gotcha.
It pitches of it to baseball players, and they're expected to react accordingly.
And so that'll come on, they'll make that payment for this fall?
This most recent schedule said 2023,
Okay.
which I'm surprised because you would ordinarily, it's completion, like when you build a house, it's completion of the project and then the following tax season, you go on the rolls, but this says 2023.
Yeah, it's in that, or in the paperwork, it says 2020.
Okay, thank you.
On 610, the administrative coaching agreement, I think last meeting we approved 2 administrative mentor agreements, something similar to that?
Correct.
Right?
Yep.
What is the nature of administrative coaching, and what's different about this than the 2 mentors that we approved last time?
I shared a description, I think I shared a description with the board, mentoring, coaching, and consulting, the 3 different layers of that. A coach may not be someone with the exact same experience as the person that they're working with. In other words, they have in-like educational experience, but they may not have been a elementary principal. So what they're doing is they're not advising them as practice of their work, like, well, on Wednesdays you should have the faculty meeting at 2:30, or I should say, in 2nd grade you should be focusing on early literacy. They would instead be talking about leadership strategies, organizational tools, and things like that.
Okay.
I included Loretta's resume. Sue had sent it out with the packet this past week, and I can share that with everyone again. She does happen to be someone with a lot of the skill set. She was a special ed administrator, so she has a lot of the skill set to cover the spectrum of things.
Okay, any other questions? All in favor? Aye. Motion's passed. Any motion for one or all of the personnel considerations?
Yeah, I'll make it for all.
Okay, do we have a second? Mrs. Burns, any discussion? One question I did have, 7-4, Junior Historical Society after-school camp counselor. Is this different than like a club, or is that a club, or?
It's different than a club. This is going to be specifically to support 350th year celebration for the town of Coeymans. So they're working with the Historical Society. So this is something that would not go into, right now contractually a club has to do, they have to do a year before they get starting to get points for that. So this would not be part of that. This is something to really support a unique project around that, but it also allows for enrichment opportunities for our students as well.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
Are there any particular deliverables or objectives that this?
So they are going to be working. There's going to be something on the weekend of the 9th and the 10th that they will
Fair enough.
demonstrate.
It will be fantastic.
Hopefully, we have
hope it'll be
big
fantastic.
dreams, and they're going to work with the Historical Society. They're going to go on field trips. Joe Bolke, Mr. Bolke is going to work with them. They've already given some suggestions on topics of what they can look for. There will be some deliverables and products around that. hopefully will outlast just this project.
And we already have a pool of students that are interested?
We do.
Okay.
We actually might increase it because the pool was large.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
And it's being paid for through the...
It's being paid through one of our state reserve grants, our American Rescue Plan grants, after school comprehensive.
Okay. Sure.
Any other questions? All in favor? Aye. Aye, motion's passed. 8 is informational items only, special reports. I do want to congratulate Mr. Engel for being the WNYT Teacher of the Week, you know? In case everyone doesn't know, it'll be on the news tonight at 10 and 11. Hopefully we'll get home to watch it. It's all day for him. Anybody else have anything to report?
I just want to say how wonderful a play was this past weekend.
Yes.
And it was just great. Again, every year it gets better and better.
Yes, it was.
And we had the cornhole tournament. I don't know how that went. I didn't go.
Yeah, they did have Adirondack Cornhole held some tournament and I think made a donation to the class of 2024 and class of 2026.
Yep.
So, great. I will turn it over to Dr. Bailey.
I agree with Kristen. The show was amazing. I was very impressed, and it's always otherworldly to see the children that you see with their heads down and their hoods up and walking down the hall turn on the lights when they get on stage. And tomorrow is the first out of the gate with our Music in Our Schools Month concert with the 6 to 12 band at the high school here. The district leadership team met last week, and we didn't have a weekend, we had a snow day. The district leadership team met a couple days ago. Maybe it was last week. Thank you. Today's Friday, right? And one of the things that I said that they would work on is trying to develop members of a team to talk about the mascot. So what they suggested was coaches, especially those who've been coaching for a long time, the mayor, his family's been here 100 years, so that's got to count for something, but members of the community who like to be involved in the process, members and representatives of the PTO and PTA, Joe Belkey from our Historical Society, who has unique knowledge of the community, maybe other dignitaries from the community, people who are very active, such as Linda Bruno or DeRocher, or any of our pastors in the community, families and graduates that have lived and participated here for generations, like target those people specifically, and of course our students and our existing staff. Now, as we know, committees reach a certain point and then they stop functioning because there's too many. So we would probably try and limit this, although a large group, we'd probably try and limit it to a group of 20 to 22 people. And then, of course, we would be petitioning or surveying the larger community, either doing forums or sending out surveys as a component of that. So we're going to work on assembling this group and aim for the first meeting in April. As a reminder, the expectation is that we have a plan for what we're going to do. That's the other thing I was going to mention. In talking with our BOCES superintendent, the public comment period for that new regulation ended 2 or 3 weeks ago now. So the state has now put up an email address to do frequently asked questions, and my argument is they should just give you, because they all know what the questions are, but the BOCES superintendent thought that they would create something based on what we know the current questions are going to be. We're going to move forward regardless, but we need to have a plan by June 30th. It doesn't mean that we have to have a mascot by June 30th. It just means that we have to say we're making a commitment, we're meeting with a committee, we're going to use this money to do the rebranding that we're going to do. I think they have to tell us what the criteria are in order for us to hit the target. So I think we'll not have an issue. It'll give us 3 months to plan out to June 30th. And then, of course, they will bring their recommendations to the board for your consideration.
Did you say in that grouping of people? There's a delegation of current students?
Yes.
Okay.
And the,
How are we gonna, you said there's gonna be people from the community who would be part of that?
yes,
How are we gonna reach those people to let them know that this is an opportunity that they can
we'll,
participate in?
we'll reach out through the PTA and PTO, but there are some people who are their children aren't in the school anymore. There might be specific people that they have names on the streets in the town, we might ask. We'll just reach out to a few people. Again, it's just, the idea is to have as wide a representation as possible so that we can go out to the larger community and ask the right questions. And then this group, I know that so the other thing was to talk to Coxsackie, and what they actually suggested is maybe finding some people from the Change of Coxsackie who managed to go through the hard effort and be okay. In other words, not something they may have wanted to do, but were okay in the end. But one of the things that Coxsackie did is they limited it down to 3. And then in the end, they allowed the students to decide because they figured they're the ones who are living this every day. And that's something this committee will help decide. How are we going to make the decision? I don't know that the board is going to be one of the ones looking at drawings and picking out names. So that's another really important task of this group. And I talked to the superintendent of Coxsackie. He's more than happy to help because it was a rough process. But even though it was rough, I think overall they thought that it worked the way it was supposed to work.
If people are included, and this is well advertised, and people feel like they're part of this process, it will obviously be easier to accept. And
we know that the News Herald will be more than willing to help. They've been good at covering all of the tribulations up to this point, and they're going to help with the solution, I'm sure. So I have a hard question for the board. I've talked with some of you anecdotally about the advertising in schools. So we are an interesting location and time. We have, throughout the years, on occasion, had nonprofit organizations send flyers home in backpacks for kids. Pee Wee football, Hudson Valley Little League, youth basketball, Starfish, other groups. I talked to our attorney about it, and attorneys are intended to be careful, right? And my question for him is, how are we able to say, this is a good organization, we'll promote you, we don't like you, we're not going to promote you? And Ryan's concern was that if we opened it up carte blanche, we would have a responsibility to allow everybody access to sending things home in our kids' backpacks, or putting them on the desk in the schools, or putting them on our website. So, and I worked at them, Fred will attest, I talked to, because Fred and I argued about this for a few hours too, I really worked with Ryan on how do we put some caveats on it to try and control it. He said that one thing that we could possibly do is say we would be supportive of nonprofit local athletic organizations that are representative of our student population. Because I know our students are in these things. The question would be, is it 50%? Have to be 50% our kids, or 1% our kids, or all our kids? That's the stumbling block, because there are, and also I always worry, regardless of whether we say not a district-sponsored event, if something were to ever happen and we've promoted it in some way, we want disclaimers that protect us. So I wanted to get a sense of the appetite of the board, because these are important organizations. I wanted my kids to be in sports and to do these activities. And when we're working with Ryan, he said we can at least limit it if we said we're going to do nonprofit athletics if it's our kids.
It makes it very difficult that we all of a sudden just stop doing this, because
we were sporadic in how we did it, but yes, we've been doing it.
It's happened for years. It's years. As long as my kids have been around, it's probably 12, 15 years that they've always sent flyers home in school. I'm not saying that we allow people into anybody's backpack or anything else. These are flyers that how it's been done in the past, were put in stacks of 20s and left in the office, and a staff member put them in, or somebody put them in the boxes, and then teachers put them in folders just like anything else. Limits, I mean, I've only been involved with local groups. I don't know if you would limit it just to athletic, because I don't know if there's other groups, whether it's Cub Scouts or Girl Scouts or something else, that I would think they would have the same opportunity to send flyers home if they would like to. I mean, we can limit it to, obviously, community organizations would be, I don't know if there's any other organizations that have tried to send flyers, but just my thoughts would be any community organization that's doing something or involving our kids or trying to, get our kids to participate, as long as it's suitable, and, if it has to have an approval by a building administrator, or if they have to put a disclaimer on there, then fine, but I would like to be able to see our groups be able to do that.
What Ryan has said is if we allow any one group in without parameter, we are required by law to allow every group in. And that means even ones that we don't find palatable or appropriate. And I'm not going to list all of them, but there are lots of organizations in the universe.
I mean, so does that mean we have to make guidelines or put something within a policy of what it must be for? I mean, it's nothing that we've never had these things in place in the past. So I don't, I'm not sure why all of a sudden we have, stop. And that was one of the things that Ryan had mentioned, is if we've done this in the past, then it's hard to just stop or say no.
Have we had groups that have attempted to put flyers out that we thought were not a good idea?
No, but you could at any moment have someone, and by law we would be required to do it because of our past practice. And these are some difficult times that we live in right now. I do not want to be beholden to put whatever someone wants in a child's folder and send it home. That's our name on it, even if it says not a school-sponsored thing.
So what do we need to do? Would we need to make a policy?
Perhaps, yeah, perhaps. It certainly would set some parameters around it.
Well, I mean, I think we need to do something, and we should need to do it quick, because I think we caught local organizations off guard, because this has always been past practice and it's been fine, and then we just stopped doing it this winter, maybe in the fall. I'm not sure if they stopped the soccer club from sending flyers home or not, or if we just started in the winter and don't let people send it home for winter. I'm not sure when we stopped allowing people to do it. I was only made aware of it, a couple of months ago.
And this is a group that has permission to actually practice on our grounds?
Correct.
Oh.
I mean, it's youth basketball that uses our
Hudson Valley
gyms,
Little
or
League.
Hudson Valley Little
Yeah.
League that
We didn't let them.
uses our fields, and
Yeah, some group, not all of them, we don't allow.
No, I understand not all of them, but it does seem ridiculous to cut them off at this point if we feel that they're worthy to rent our space or use our space.
There are two different things, but I know what you're saying. I think a policy is appropriate, and I'm just giving my best advice. If you want me to allow anybody in, I'll do that. I'm just saying what Ryan has said.
Then have it write policy.
Yeah.
I'm sure there are some out there. I'm sure other schools have, because everybody does it. And I would like to see it not be limited to athletics as well.
Right.
Have it have to be community-based, have to benefit our kids, and be obviously nonprofit, so.
Okay, thank you.
we have anything else?
No, thanks.
All right, Mr. Engelhardt.
Dr. Bailey mentioned the kickoff, tomorrow's concert for 6 through 12 instrumental. Friday, there will be a presentation or a performance at the Empire State Plaza for jazz ensemble. I believe it's at 10:30 in harmonics. There's also art down there from some of our students as well, so if you get a chance to go down on Friday, that would be great. 5th grade concert on Wednesday the 22nd. Choral concert 6 through 12 on the 23rd. And then our Greene County All-County is on Friday, March 31st at Carroll Durham High School, so I'm sure I'll see some of you there. I wanted to mention that we had, because March is Women's History and celebrating some of the women in our community, the RCS sent 3 CTE students, prospective girls who are interested in CTE, to Cap Reach and BOCES last week. So I just wanted to thank Ms. Gell for organizing that. And then our middle school PTSO is doing a digital reminder for parents on what to look for around all things digital resources for students. So it's a parent educational piece. That will be on the 22nd. On the 21st, Ms. Augustinoni and Ms. Tebow are holding their parent university. So I just wanted to mention that as well. That will be a virtual meeting. And then we're going to go to, I had mentioned this a couple years ago, to visit some schools in Hartford, Connecticut this coming Friday. We're going to visit 2 theme-based schools that have strong social emotional learning programs and CTE specifically around arts and performing arts. So we're going to do that, and I will present that out at our next board meeting. Lots more. Please check out Facebook and our website as well. That's it.
Thank you. We will turn it over to Mr. Bone.
So I have one item I want to talk about tonight. I gathered some additional information regarding the tax exemption for firefighters and ambulance workers. So I was able to, with some help from local fire departments, able to gather some numbers around this. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to get any from the ambulance workers, but I was able to get around 145 eligible firefighters for this exemption. So what they have to be eligible for this, they must own the property. The volunteer firefighter or the ambulance worker has to own the property. They have to be their primary resident, and they have to be located in the jurisdiction served by the fire company or department ambulance service. Some of the other minimum service requirements that you guys could vote on when this comes up for vote, if you would like to go that route, was service requirement. You can go as low as 2 years or up to 5 years. Again, that's up to the Board of Education. Some additional exemptions we can add on to this is a exemption, and this has to be done yearly. Every year you have to go up for this exemption. You could also approve a permanent one for if they fill all those other requirements out, but they've done it for more than 20 years, they can be permanently into that exemption. Again, that's at the option of the board. And the last one would be a surviving spouse for that 20-year permanency. Again, that's a vote on the Board of Education. With those numbers, with an average, again, there's some highs and lows with this, an average household value of around $25,000 assessed, 5%. A 5% exemption would be right around $12,250, and a total of right around 1.7. That would be taken, spread out to our taxpayers. Our assessed value right now is about 1.5 billion, and then if you double that for a 10% exemption.
You know what the size of the whole pool is? It's 1.5 million. Do you know what the whole size of the pool is? Is it like a $500 million pool, or?
It's a $1.5 billion pool. That's the total assessed for all of our assessed value right now. So you could vote, the board could vote on either 5% exemption or 10% or anything in between there. It's actually 1.7 is for 5%. That's how it would affect the taxpayers.
What's that?
1.7 would be if we were to, you take that 146 individuals and they all got approved for that,
Yep.
the 5% off if they had a $250,000 house, that would be the effect on the
Total of $1.7 million.
right. And that would have to be out of that 1.5 billion. So it would have to be dispersed
You're saying billion.
Yeah,
Okay,
for the
that's-
assessed
that's-
value, yes.
That's the letter I was missing.
Yeah, I'm sorry if I said million, it is
Sorry.
almost 9:30.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, we have missed the mark to be able to put this on, for this year's taxes, that was March 1st. But we will give you more information for, if this is something you want to move forward with, for the next, tax season.
Is there a way, like to come up with a chart or something to maybe explain all this better? So at least we can comprehend and not guess the numbers as far as the number of firemen, the assessed.
Yeah, absolutely, I
what
can
the
put it in a
percentages.
document for you, absolutely.
And then, that way we would have it and then be able to also.
Yeah,
publish
absolutely.
it.
When the time comes, if something this you guys would like to move forward with, maybe I can give a little bit, a document, a little bit better of a presentation for you.
Okay.
What happens for spouses if both are members? Is it a one per household, or is it both?
My understanding is it's one per household, but I could verify that with our attorneys.
But I think someone else explained to us that they can't, like if they're members of the ambulance and the fire department, they can't take it twice. It's,
Yeah.
still a one-time thing.
No, I was thinking more along of,
If you're both part of the
both
fire
spouses
department,
are
yeah,
named
yeah.
on the deed, one's on the fire, one's on the ambulance. They're separate individuals, but they're both eligible.
So we missed the deadline for this tax year.
Yeah, it was March 1st.
If we were to apply to next tax year, it would be we'd have to take action by March 1st of next year.
Yeah, we have some time.
It was a tight timeline,
Yeah.
and those people that got it through, a lot of them are holding emergency meetings to do that in order to get it through. Because they didn't come out with the
Till late February.
Yeah, the governor's
February, June.
directive came, and the regulation came out, right?
Yeah, I would say once we get through this budget process.
Yeah,
right,
absolutely.
Then maybe we'll
Absolutely,
look at numbers.
yeah.
Get some documents and charts made up, and then we can go.
Yeah, we can also, and with some of these other districts, you can see how it affects their tax levy too, so it'd be good information to have.
Thank you.
One last thing, you probably saw in here, the resignation of Deidre Buckley, who has admirably served through some very difficult COVID-related communication times. And she's going into some different employment. So I wanted to just let you know that I've spoken to BOCES and asked for their assistance in bridging the gap between when she leaves and when we find a person to replace her as communications. We can't go without it, especially during budget season, and her last day is March 31st. So BOCES will up their service provider to us and give us someone that will be able to work with us on site to get us through to June. And in the meantime, we'll post the position and hopefully we find somebody.
Okay. Anyone have any new business they would like to add?
Our students from SAD and with Matt Miller presented to the Albany County Legislature, I don't know if anyone read it, on the effects of vaping and everything on a school setting. I think it's great that our students went in front of a government body and presented. I also think maybe the board should consider inviting them here. It's great that they went there, but to talk about vaping and in school and things, and they're from our district, so what a better place than have them come in here and talk about in front of the board. We're not in school every day. So I just wanted to put that out there and see if that's a possibility.
One of the primary reasons they went up there was working on changing legislation, in a way, and asking the Albany County Sheriff to ticket violators or underaged, which was very relevant in that. But you're right, if we're promoting public speaking and communication and advocacy as one of our skill set that we want our kids to have, it would be great.
Yeah, I mean, they went there, so I think it would be a great idea to extend an invitation to them.
This will be easy compared to there, right? It might be past their bedtime though.
Put them on the first
Probably not.
first session.
Put first thing.
Special presentation. Okay. Anything on any of these items with old business? No? Okay. I don't know, I was looking, huh? I'll leave that one to Dr. Bailey. Brandy,
if they finish the
test
project.
results compared to we'll look at them and tell you before next meeting.
we were going to discuss at this meeting. It's on here. In regards to the practice for the team that has to be shuttled down to Peter B. I know we talked about it somewhat last time, and has there been any progress? I'm sure there's numbers now on how many people are on that team. Some parents may be carpooling. So I know it was a concern how we're going to bus. There was a lot of things talked about. By now, with the team practicing, we know how many people are on the team. Have the parents been surveyed to find out how many people are carpooling? You know, say there's 15 people on the team. Are you talking about really 5 people only staying after school that we have to worry about, or is it 15? Has there been any progress on that?
We have to transport them there, right?
From here to there, but
Yeah,
it
well,
was
you
like
mean
if they were staying here, we were talking last time, Teddy, you know, if they're staying here, do we have to hire a building aide to stay with them? Are we talking 15 kids or 5 kids? Are they carpooling? I mean, because practice has started now, right?
Well, I mean, not outside, they're
Right, but-
inside and stuff, but eventually they will get outside. For sure, eventually they will get to the other field. And if they have to stay here till 5 o'clock.
Nothing's been resolved.
Nothing's been resolved yet, right? Okay.
Know who the players are.
Not a problem. I think modified starts next week, but I'm not sure if any teams practice other places besides here or not, but they may have to have after-school supervision.
Mm-hmm.
If there's modified practices starting at 5 o'clock as well.
Is this driven by field space or
Coaches.
schedule?
Coaches. Schedule. And there's scheduling practices 5 to 7, so kids have to stay here until 5 o'clock if they don't have transportation. So they have to stay in school until 5 o'clock. We discussed this last meeting, and then having to get transported if they're at Peter B. or supervision here. Or middle school, I guess, we put them in one school.
We could, yeah.
So I think we hired the teaching assistant, correct? Or we had to hire
We had a
some
building aide doing it.
building aide that's
Or a teaching assistant, yes.
that will have to also stay with these students, or sports or athletes, because they're here.
And then we are transporting from here to there?
That's what we're asking.
I think we have to.
Yeah. At 5 o'clock. That we have to hire a building aide to watch the kids, because if they're here until 5 o'clock, we need supervision. Okay.
7 to 10's a long day.
12-hour day. No BOE committee reports, no policy adoptions for review. I have no hearings and petitions. Upcoming activity, we have a budget workshop on 3/29, and our next BOE meeting will be 4/5. We will be going into executive. No, not exec. Okay, we're not going into executive session, so we need a motion to adjourn. Mr. Engel, second. Mrs. Burns, all in favor?
Oh.